Hi, this is Danielle with Hollywood Breakthrough, and today we have an amazing guest. We have a director, producer, writer. We have Fay Hauser-Price on today. Hey, Miss Price, thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, I'm enjoying it already. Blessed to be asked to participate here.
You have done so much work, about 30 years of work from TV to films, and just wanted to kind of get some information on how your journey started and maybe someone can learn some of the things you've done because you've been on What's Happening, Good Times, Love Boat, Taxi. My favorites, of course, The Route to the Next Generation, JoJo Dancer, Glee, gosh, Ghost Whispers, ER. You've worked with Richard Pryor, Rob Schneider, Lawrence Fishburne, Angela Bassett. You've worked with just about everyone. And so talk to me a little bit more about how you got started.
Well, I always like to say I got started as a kid growing up in the South. Television and movies were devoid, basically, of blacks. But I loved television and I loved movies. I grew up in the segregated South. So there was a black movie theater, and then there was the movie theater downtown where we had to go upstairs in the balcony to see movies. So I basically never thought about acting or producing or any of that as a career path for me because it just didn't seem like it was open for an African-American woman to do. But there was a television show on that was called Our Gang, The Little Rascals, and it was a group of kids, I guess in New York or that area, and they were all kinds of kids. There were some black kids in there, and they just did everything. They, had races, they made shows, they, had little boyfriend, girlfriends. They just did everything, and that's who I looked at as, a role model. That there was something out there. There were people like me who were doing things, who were living life and being creative. And so me and my friends started putting together little shows, and we had them in the basement, and we sold tickets, and, we had our parents, drum up people in the neighborhood to come, and we decorated and had a stage because she had a basement, and it was big enough for us to get people in, and we had little door prizes and all kinds of things. So that's kind of how I got started. When I went to college, I didn't think about acting as a career path because both my parents were professionals. They were teachers. My mother was first grade, and my father was a college professor. And so, they expected, and I sort of expected, that I would go into a more traditional profession. But it was the turbulent 60s, and I didn't believe in the establishment. And so I was adrift in terms of looking for a place to land.
I see.
And so I got a degree in psychology, but I got it quickly, and decided to do something that I had been doing because it was my passion, and that was to do plays and learn about acting in the theater. And so I got a dual degree in theater and got an opportunity to join a group of actors who were a year ahead of me, who decided to start an acting company. And this was at the University of North Carolina, where only 1% of people who were enrolled in this 20,000 person campus was either black or a woman or from out of state. So there were precious few of us.
Okay.
But I got a job. They asked me to be a part of their theater company, and we did theater. And that's how I sort of got started. Got an equity card through them. Went to New York. That's how the journey began.
What was your big break that you kind of got noticed?
Well, I guess my first job out here in Hollywood, I guess my first job was What's Happening. My second job was Good Times. My third job was Roots. So all of those jobs were, I had principal characters. I had a good role to play. Roots, however, was the most prestigious of those jobs, and I guess it got me more notice in the broader community.
Right.
However, if I walk down the street today, somebody says, "Aren't you an actress?" I said, "Yeah." Did you do Good Times? So I think Good Times has played more than anything on
Right.
television, so people know me from that.
Good Times are on syndication a lot.
Exactly. But I think probably the break was Roots, because it was a substantial role over a number of episodes. I was in 4 of the episodes as a teacher who taught 4 generations of the Haley family. And so I guess that was my entree into Hollywood.
And you played, that was Roots, the Next Generation you were in.
Correct. Carrie Barton, the school teacher. I got the privilege of acting with a lot of great African-American actors, and also to be able to do a scene with the great Henry Fonda. So that was a big milestone.
Did you felt like backlash? Because when it first aired, I'm sure a lot of people were like, wow, this is, the past coming right in front. Was there a lot of backlash?
No, there was no backlash for Roots 2. There was for Roots, the first Roots 1, because they didn't really expect it to succeed and gave it, I don't think, very much publicity or anything, and it was a surprise to the industry that Saga took off like it did. Appointment television at its height. Quite a lot of the African-American community watched it. Quite a lot of the Asian community watched it. And it taught us a lot about the history that we do not have in our history book. So it was extremely needed, and I guess it hasn't really fulfilled all of our expectations yet in terms of opening the door to stories about the African-American experience within this culture that are not stereotypical journeys.
TV's changed a great deal from going from television to things like Netflix, cable, things like that. People actually moving from TV to cable to Netflix and internet. How's that, you think that transition is for African Americans now?
We still have a journey in this society because we are not in a majority, and so we're always going to be categorized within the broader society as a majority audience, which means that we may not have a large enough numbers to satisfy certain requirements for the larger network. However, the cables, the subscription, internet are fertile ground for us to enter in and to participate in by being hired for jobs there, but also by creating jobs for ourselves, projects for ourselves that can be aired on these different mediums. So I think it's imperative that we we continue to be proactive in getting our stories out there. And those avenues may be the best way to do that, because they don't require as large an audience to make your investment back.
The hurdles and the obstacles you went through, what things that you think you would have changed or done differently, or what can you give to someone that's inspiring to be, in acting or be a director? Some of the things that you wish someone would taught you or told you beforehand.
Well, this thing is called show business. And we often, and I did, were not versed enough in the business of it. So I think that if I were doing it again, I would be taking the business courses to know exactly how this capitalistic society works and how to maximize my craft and potential in it alongside of, practicing the craft. But I think the business part of it we neglect if we're going to go into it as a business, as show business, and not just an exercise in creativity.
I see. And I look at your website. It's www.houselights.com. You have vast things that you've done, from directing, producing, some music, artwork. So you have a lot of things your hands into. What is the one medium that you really love the most? Because you do plays, I see you're doing speaking gigs, things like that. What do you feel like is more your passion, being a director, a producer, music, the acting? What do you feel like is right now on the stage of your life is your passion right now?
Well, right now, I guess it's more the producing, directing. Although all of the creative elements are parts of me that I don't want to relinquish, which is the problem. Because everything takes a lot of time and takes a lot of commitment, and is in itself, a singular great pursuit. I just liked all of it. And like I said, it satisfied different things. I really like to act a lot more. But in order to act, you have to have someone hire you. You have to have someone choose you. And if nobody's choosing you for whatever reason, then you have to create something yourself. And you have to then produce it. And you have to then find the director or find someone to do it. But all of that is business. And all of that are crafts that you have to nourish and feed into with education and seminars and contacts. So at this stage, I know that in order to do any of those things, I have to be more proactive as a producer and a director to get either my own ideas out there or an idea that I might come across, which I find intriguing and think it needs to be out. So I guess now the most fulfilling is to, get more product out there, more stories out there. And to do that, I have to exercise my producing and directing gifts.
I can't go any further without talking about your husband. Your husband is Louis Price, the famous Temptation singer. How did that maneuvering, being married and having a family, fit into your craft and your career?
There's a reason why it's difficult for women to attain the same kind of, yes, you could say, a recognition that men have. Because in order to be, you need support. So being a wife and mother often means that you have to relinquish some of your own path to fulfill a greater path for others. My husband is a fantastic singer and producer and both arranger and now music arranger. And we are doing concerts together. And I love working with him. A challenge always. But I love working with him because he is so very creative. I mean, he is one of the most creative people on the spot, improvisational-wise, that I know. And so sometimes sometimes I have to, take a back seat for my projects in order to get a project that we're jointly working on together. So that's always a challenge when you are in a situation where you're married or have children to raise. But yes, our greatest creation is our daughter, Sierra Elizabeth.
Now, your daughter ran, I believe she was a track runner. Was that correct?
Oh, she was, yeah. She was an All-American in track at the University of Michigan, but now she's a practicing attorney.
Okay. Is she one that's on CNN sometimes? Is that correct?
She did the James L.S. Mitchell show as a correspondent there for, I guess, the last year.
Okay. And I noticed something I read about your husband. I believe you guys did something with the late Robin Williams. Is that correct?
He did Robin Williams' show, his last show. He sang on that show.
Now, I know you sing. How long have you been singing? Because I've seen things like there's things out there online about you singing and doing a lot of poetry and readings. Is that a huge passion of yours?
Yes, it is, and I have not done it as much as I need to. But like I said, it's a lot of stuff to do, and it's hard to juggle all the things that I do. But yeah, when I went to New York out of North Carolina, I presented some of the work that I had done. I did musicals when I was in North Carolina for something like a street theater project. And I auditioned at a record company and with some of those songs that I had done and became a staff writer at a record company. So while I was there, I did a lot of writing, and we had some records due. I also had a record due on me because I had done some musical stuff in North Carolina. And so, yeah, there's some stuff out there with my voice on it. But I also sing background with my husband, Louis Price, sometimes when he's doing shows. We have done some joint projects together where I sing with him. But a lot of times I'm behind the scenes and doing the video aspect of it. But yeah, I like to sing a little bit and do poetry, and I have a few things that I do.
Do you have a piece that you love to share with us? That'd be great.
I could do one for you.
Yeah, I would love it if you can do something, because I know you do a lot of spoken words. I've been listening to some of the things, so.
Yeah. All right. This is called The Isle of You, and it has been set to music, but I like to do it as a poem.
Okay.
I took a journey to an island that I will call the Isle of You. I had a beautiful vacation that I confess was overdue. I swam in your deep blue sea. Let your love wash me and your currents carry me to your shore, floating free as the breeze with more peaceful moments that I adore. And I am glad I took a journey to an island that I will call the Isle of You. It is a blessing that I found it and that your tourist seasons through. I walked on your sandy beach and let your sunlight reach beneath the surfaces of my skin, bringing happiness once again, warming me with your gentle wind. And I am glad lying here beneath your open skies. I melt in your starry eyes. If I stayed for an eternity, it would come as no surprise that I took a journey to an island that I will call the Isle of You. I had a beautiful vacation that I confess was overdue. I swam in your deep blue sea. Let your love wash me and your currents carry me to your shore, floating free as the breeze once more, peaceful moments that I adore. And I am glad I took a journey to an island that I will call the Isle of You. Isle of You. Isle of You. Isle of You. I love you. I love you. I love you.
All right. That is Mrs. Fay Hauser-Price. I mean, that is fantastic. That is great.
Thank you.
Yeah, you definitely need to be doing some spoken word.
You know, I've been doing some poetry, and I've been doing it over a number of years, and I've never really gotten it into a book form, but I'm getting a poetry book together, and hopefully we'll have it out by the end of the year.
Wow.
Some more spoken word and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. So what inspired you when you were writing?
Oh, life, trying to figure it out, trying to, put all of that emotion that I have and frustration and love into something that is positive, I guess, which is, what I find is so unfortunate about how they've taken the art out of the classroom, because it is a healing bridge and a way for kids to communicate and to, get all of the stuff that's in them out in a way that they can use it and not be so frustrated about everything.
I agree.
I work with the Los Angeles Women's Theater Festival at one point, and we were doing, after school workshops because art in the class was gone. We were doing a lot of theater workshops and things. I think, hopefully it's coming back, but we really need more art in the class.
Took art when I was in school. My mom definitely made sure that we learned music. I was horrible, of course, but
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But what is important is that you do it. You
Right.
Get it out there. You get it out of your system. Some people make a living out of it, but that doesn't matter. I went to be an exchange student to South America. One of the things that was just beautiful that happened when I was there was that, people weren't afraid to express themselves. They weren't overly conscious of, I don't sing real well or I don't dance really well. It was about the participation. It wasn't about making fun of people if they weren't up to a certain standard. It wasn't about judging people. It was just about living life. And that's important, that we, let people live life and be content in their soul,
No, you're right. I mean, the importance of having music and art in school is huge because it gives a way to express yourself. I think we are losing that with a lot of schools. A lot of kids are not getting to understand art and appreciate art, from music to writing to just basic fundamentals. That's important. So
Right.
Did you teach yourself a lot of the things? So I know you're doing the camera work. Right now you're doing a project with the Hot Flash Films company. So what's that project a little bit about that you've been doing with them?
Well, we started it out of the Directors Guild as a way to be proactive through the Women's Steering Committee. Started trying to find projects where women could be directors, just like, African Americans, the studios, the boys' club says that African Americans and women aren't ready.
Right.
So we started doing some projects or trying to get some projects off the ground to disprove that fact. My short film, Where There's Smoke, one of those projects. And an outgrowth of that was Hot Black Films, where we're working on feature projects. One of them is a project that called Chanter. It's about a service dog. We have some other projects that we're working on as well. So
Okay.
yeah, also a documentary called Honeychild, which is about the sex trade here in the United States. But working on another project called Surfman with my company and Live Oak Production, and it's a historical drama about African Americans in the 1890s who were rescuers, who were sea rescuers, which is a true life story.
The Where the Smoke Is, you wrote and directed that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So did you teach yourself cinematography, or did you went to classes? How did that come about when you decided to pick up a camera?
Oh my, it just came about. I mean, almost everything I've done except the acting classes, and I did, dance classes, has been an outgrowth of just me picking up something and doing it. The writing as well is something that I just sort of worked on and taught myself, emulated other people's work. I worked at a production company called FI Communications over in Burbank during the 90s, where we produced African-American content television shows. And it was called syndicated television because at that time you could sell your shows to the network in their off hours. That was between the time that the news came on at night and that the news came on for the 6 o'clock cycle or whatever, the 5 o'clock cycle. All of that space in there was up for grabs. And so a lot of production companies sprang up to fill the gap. The networks were not allowed to put their own programming there. They had to open the field up to everybody out there. And we started doing programs. One of them was called Paris in Search of a Dream, where we went to Paris, France, and interviewed African Americans who were there working and living, which was, a lot of people were there because there was a glass ceiling here and they could go to Europe overseas and become, fulfill their business potential. So we went over and looked at people who were doing that in the fashion industry, singing, in the government, all kinds of things. And while doing those kinds of projects, it was not union, so we had to pitch in and do everything. We had to learn how to shoot, learn how to edit, and, carry the cameras around, figure out how to make the set and all of that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of hands-on at that time. Learned how to edit then because I do it now as well when I'm pressed. So I learned a lot of skills doing that, and I'm really grateful for it. A guy named Bob Dock that has that company.
Jojo Dancer, you did a film that was with Richard Pryor. How was that working with him?
Oh, it was fabulous. It was fascinating because Jojo Dancer was the story of Richard's life, basically, and he was directing it. So it was interesting to me because I did it at the time during the time when I was doing production. So I was seeing the process through different eyes, not just coming in as an actress, to come in and do my lines and whatever. I was seeing the process by knowing sort of what was going on in the director's mind and the producer's mind. So it was interesting to see Richard Pryor objectively look at his life while he was shooting it, to reflect on it. I mean, you could see it in his demeanor that not only was he acting in it and reliving those scenes, but he was evaluating his life and his purpose and all of that. And so not only were we making art, I was exercising my psychology degree and watching him and analyzing his, demeanor. So it was doubly interesting to me, that project.
In television right now, there's a lot of different shows. One show that's right now is Blackness. What do you think? What's your take on that show?
Oh, I think I love it. We're in an era where the word, the culture, is changing. It's not just relegated to people of African descent. We're in a fluid area. All kinds of mixes and iterations are happening, and we're trying to figure that out. And I think that this show is a microcosm and a way for us to figure it out and have fun with. All cultures mix and morph, and we are in a morphing era right now.
Right.
And to have some ownership of how that image gets out there is fabulous. Because, 10 years ago, it would have been not under our stewardship.
Right.
And so the image would have been skewed to someone looking outside of our culture and commenting on it, instead of us looking inside of our culture and commenting on it. And I think that's a great thing.
I like the show. I like the show. I like it. Yeah. Do you think it's a modern day Cosby show?
It's its own thing. I think I wouldn't say a modern day Cosby show, but I mean, the parallels are there. I think it's its own thing.
Okay. Now, by looking at some of the television shows right now, is there something you're watching right now that you love besides Blackness?
I watch a little bit of everything. I mean, I watch documentaries, a lot of PBS stuff. I watch a lot of everything. I just love it. I love all of it.
By looking at TV now, are you seeing other ethnic groups can be introduced? Because there's not a lot of different ethnic groups that's on television that other people can relate to. That's
correct. Well, we're still wrangling everybody who is still wrangling their image from the stereotype. What has been fortuitous about other groups, say Hispanic groups or Asian groups, is that they have had their own outlet where they have their images the way they want to portray them. There's lots of Spanish language television. There's lots of Asian television that we don't necessarily see, but that they get to participate in their own culture. We don't have that luxury. The only way we can get that luxury is if we do, like you were talking about earlier, sequestering our own channels, which we're doing like with Aspire and Africa Channel and TV One and BET. We are beginning to own our own portrayal of ourselves in a way that is empowering, that allows us to be creative within our own culture and then have other people come to it instead of always going somewhere and morphing ourselves into something that's acceptable. So I think that's a great thing that's happening. Like I said, we have the sort of 4 networky cable stations that are giving us that ability to do that, and we're having more producers produce for internet content. And so I believe we're starting to find, and like Blackish, we're starting to find our own voice, because we're still really caught up in reflecting a stereotypical image in order to fit within this culture. Not necessarily what, like I mentioned before, the Asian groups or the Hispanic groups, they're doing it also. They're fitting into things, in order to be on the broader channels. But they also have a haven, a place where they can work out their own images the way they internally want to work them out.
And same thing with women. Like you said earlier, still very hard for a lot of women to act and to write and be in control of the particular image what they want to portray on television or in films.
Exactly.
The TV shows you've done are amazing, and a lot of it is groundbreaking. I mean, so what are some of the things that you kind of, because you got some no's starting out, so what is something that you kept doing, like honing your craft?
Like I said, I went to New York. When I came out here, I sort of came out here, and like the 1, 2, 3 was good. I didn't go around in a lot of different circles, and I'm really glad and blessed that I didn't, because I don't think I would have gotten the opportunity to do Roots if I had been in the path that most actresses and actors had to travel while they were here in LA during that time. I came out of New York, and I came from doing national tour hurling. And so a lot of times Eastern, more trained, they call it, actors have a better cachet when they come out here. And I've benefited from that, from being in New York, working in the theater. But I also benefited because I had developed this other side of me, which was working in a music business, in a writing capacity. I got a lot of no's, but I felt like when I got a no, I could work somewhere else and do something else that was satisfying to me. And so I left the no's where they were and just buried myself in something that I felt positive about. And that was writing, or that was working on music or whatever. But I guess that was what I did to sort of keep myself fairly sane, because I got a lot of no's. I'm not stereotypical. And even after I did Roots, because I wasn't really stereotypical, it was not easy to get work. I was the girlfriend, the love interest, the girlfriend. But at that time, women didn't have they were sidekicks, basically. They weren't principals like we have on, How to Get Away with Murder or Scandal. Or
right.
The show was never about you. It was always you were the sidekick to somebody, the love interest to somebody. But that was difficult in those days because, I'm not beautiful, but I'm not homely either. So I wasn't stereotypical. I'm not the sex pot.
Well, we think you're beautiful, definitely.
Well, thank you. But I'm just talking stereotypically, like when they put you in the category to go cast. And if you were, beautiful in that category, the parts for you as an African American were basically, hooker parts, because you didn't want to be a threat, or you didn't want the eye of your lead white actor to be looking at you. That was a no-no. That was not going to happen. So there were all kinds of little coded things that were happening in terms of casting, in terms of writing, that were happening in those days that kept most of us on a particular level in terms of the business, in terms of working your way up the ladder of, I don't want to say stardom because that's not it, but just to be a working actor, to be put in the A category.
Right.
Part of the reason why I started turning to production, because they're not going to give you the reins. So you got to figure out a way to satisfy your soul mission, up in some other way. I'm working on two documentary projects. One is my family is having their 100th family reunion in 2015, and so I'm working on a documentary about that.
Wow.
Going back to our great-great-great-grandmother, who was a slave, and her family, and her progeny, as it were, which is now spread all over the country. So I'm doing a project on that. And I'm also doing a project on a documentary of my sister, Peaches Golding, who became the first African-American to be the High Sheriff of Bristol, England, appointed by Queen Elizabeth on the anniversary of the 200th anniversary of the abolition of the English slave trade.
Wow.
So that should prove to be interesting. A lot of serendipitous points of contact.
I read something about was your father at one time a freedom rider?
He was a little before the Freedom Riders. My father challenged the Jim Crow laws in 1947 after he came back from the World War II and was awarded a settlement from the Greyhound Bus Company about 9 years before the bus boycott at Rosa Parks. So, yeah, he was always in civil rights.
And what would you tell someone starting out now, either in acting or producing or directing or just writing or spoken word, might be struggling or unsure about the business themselves?
Well, first of all, I would say to people, express yourself in whatever form that you can. Then put it out there in whatever way that you can. If it's your church, if it's your community, if it's, the open mic session, if it's your school play, if it's, announcing something, if it's drawing or painting, do it. If you have a passion for it and you want to make it commerce, then learn the business of it so that you can learn how to capitalize on it, because that's where we live. We live in a capitalistic society. Now, everybody that has a love for art and that does it is not going to be a professional at it. But that shouldn't stop you from doing it. And those who want to be professionals, then study. Study, what it means to be in business, what it means, what you have to do to, take your acting classes and get an agent and all of the above. Go to school. People are coming out of these film schools with great and beautiful portfolios, but that's because they, have a passion for it and they want to do it and they've gone toward it as a profession. So if that's what you want to do, then I say, put your head down and find a place to practice and take some classes and network with people and go forward. You'll find out whether it's made for you, whether you want to do it as a profession or you just want to do it to satisfy your soul.
That is great. And do you have a favorite writer that you kind of love their work, or a favorite actress?
That's hard.
That might be hard.
That's hard. That's really hard.
Okay.
Like I said, I look at everything. I enjoy everybody's work, from the kindergartners to, for real.
You're definitely a parent.
You learn things from people.
Right.
You learn spontaneity. You learn work ethic. So all of those things are important to me, and I applaud anybody who is expressing themselves.
And before we leave today, can we pull out one more way for you to express yourself by having you do one more quote or one more reading?
Ooh, one more reading.
You got one more for us?
If I can find something right quick to read.
Take your time.
I don't want it to be dead space in the air here.
Oh, I'll edit it out. Don't worry.
Oh, you'll edit it out. Oh, okay. Then I don't feel so bad. Okay. Do you want something a little provocative?
Let's go for it. While you're looking for that, how proud are you of your daughter? I've seen a couple of clips of her on, like I said, on CNN. And she didn't take the acting or the music thing like you and your husband decided to do the business side and be a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm extremely, we both are extremely proud of her for, forging her own path. She's our first lawyer in the family. And so we're really proud because she's a corporate lawyer and she's doing some really, great things. I can't say enough. We're just very proud of her. She's got a terrific work ethic. Whatever she does, she'll do great.
That's good.
Yeah. Okay, I found this poem. This is called Touch Me at Your Peril. Lady watched him from a distance. She saw him full of mystery. She watched him make his magic movement, see who he might be. Enchanted by pageant, she stepped a bit too near. The flame shot up so brightly she could hardly hear him say, touch me at your peril. It's harder than you think. Touch me if you dare to see fantasy, reality, all in a blink. Lady took the challenge of passion and of pain as she saw him charm the children, the old, and the insane. Then she glimpsed behind illusion something frail, a child at play. So she stepped out of the shadows just as he began to say, touch me at your peril. It's harder than you think. Touch me if you dare to see fantasy, reality, all in a blink. On their sojourn down the corridor, he turned and touched her so. Her knees lost all their feeling and her head began to go. And he swept his hand before her and she reached without delay and ascended into glory as she clearly heard him say, touch me at your peril. It's harder than you think. Touch me if you dare to see fantasy, reality, all in a blink. When she opened up her eyes, two pools of light fell from his face, and his lips revealed an answer and the root of her escape. From his thigh he tore a portion, and she ate it right away. Then she opened up her secrets, and her flesh began to say, touch me at your peril. It's harder than you think. Touch me if you dare to see fantasy, reality, all in a blink. Okay, so that's that.
Wow. And then what was the title of that one?
It was called Touch Me at Your Peril, acting. That's what this one is called, acting. The words on the page grabbed my heart. How could they be so familiar? And they pulled me forward into my past, where memory enveloped my soul. Thoughts of what happened long ago welled up, formed emotion, and pushed past my throat and flowed. The tongue circled letters, formed utterances, spoke the words on the page as they became mine now, in this moment, just as they were in that moment long ago when life shaped them and spat them forth in my life. And here they were, someone else's page, reflecting a parallel history. This one mine, that one theirs. Incredible, but not unique. A hush, a moment, as the audience waits. Could I take them through the passage with me and the words on the page, make them believe in the parallelism, not the parallelism, but the fusion? The words mine now, the thoughts flesh here, the experience present. Action.
Wow.
Okay.
Acting. I want to say thank you so much. Your work is priceless and it's timeless. And I really don't think that nowadays people are appreciating the craft at the time, at that era, how great it was. And I just think that it's very important that my generation and the other generation understand that your talent and what you've done to Hollywood and what you've brought to Hollywood is important. And I just don't want that to be forgotten. And that's why one reason why I created this type of format, because, people who are, A-listers, B-listers, it doesn't really matter. The idea is that people have all this talent and a lot of people are not aware of it, or maybe forgotten. And I want to make sure that you are not forgotten, because it's really important that people understand and hear your voice and know that you are amazing actress. And I want to thank you for everything you've done.
Oh, wow.
Keep doing something, whatever it is.
Oh, that is so sweet. You don't know how uplifting that is. Especially when, I'm working here sort of in a vacuum, kind of with my head down, trying to keep and make a living. But it's just, you never know, how you touch people. And that's why it's really important to just keep working, because you never know. Keep working and put it out there.
So I appreciate that. So I thank you for your work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for, appreciating it. That's, I guess, the reason why we do things, to touch another soul.
Thank you so much for being on Hollywood Breakthrough. Pleasure talking to you. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, I loved it, Danielle. You were a great person, and I love what you're doing. I think it's really needed. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.